Hypnotherapy. Today, I want to walk you through a handful of ideas that are going to enhance your smoking cessation sessions. Please, just take whatever's useful here, start to apply it. A lot of times I'm working with hypnotherapy coaches, psychologists, doctors when I'm doing training and teaching smoking cessation. And it's often the case that they weren't smokers themselves. This is something I had to deal with. It was very difficult. So I think it's almost because I didn't have firsthand experience. Oftentimes I would allow myself to be hypnotized by that client's experience when they were telling me all the reasons that, smoking was going to be very difficult for them or that they weren't going to be able to quit. And I honestly had moments when I was like, who am I to judge? I never smoked a cigarette a day in my life, so how would I know what they're really dealing with? And having gone through all of that and came out the other side very successful with helping a ton of people quit smoking, I wanted to share some of these important lessons with you. Hopefully it can shorten your learning curve and really enhance your ability to help people. So let's dive into it. Number one, the paradox of the slingshot. So quitting smoking is like pulling back a slingshot. I want you to think about it this way. Specifically when we're doing client-led hypnosis. Maybe I need to frame this on the front end. So I've helped so many people quit smoking, but I've talked to even more. All right, I do live videos, maybe 100, 170 people will be on there, and I often ask this question, what would you say is the most important thing about quitting smoking? Would you say it's primarily a mental issue, something in your mind, emotions, things like that, or would you say it's something chemical or physical? And I've asked this question to so many people, it's insane. But the overwhelming majority of them give me some number way up there, 90% mental. Some people even say 99%. It doesn't really matter. We know as hypnotherapists, if you don't solve this inner reality, all the issues, the types of resistance that person has towards the goal they want to achieve, chances for a strong or a long-lasting outcome are going to be very limited, because as soon as they're a challenge, we haven't resolved some of this inner conflict, they go back to the thing that they've known forever. Right? So this is why we're slowing down so much. But a lot of times it looks like it's slowing down. I was talking to some people about this yesterday. You think about it like this: you've got your client here, okay, and you've got the destination. Hey, I want to stop smoking. And that's the destination, and I'm the client. Okay, if they think the problem is 90% mental, there's a bit of a gap in terms of a distance from where they are and where they want to be. And a lot of times we like to fill this gap with all the cool, awesome techniques and protocols we've learned. What I found to be very fast, though, is when I just slow down and work through all the aspects that they think are the things that they say are mentally holding them back from quitting. And if you think about it, when someone wants to quit smoking, they'll tell you this. They'll tell you that it's majority of the problem's in the mind, but then every single solution, right, or the path they try to take to get to the destination, it has a tendency to be something that's external to them, something that's outside the mind. Oh, I'm going to set a quit date. And the quit date's great if you're using the time to prepare yourself to be able to take action afterward and to deal with all the different things that are going to come up, right? That's where we come in. We're amazing at that type of stuff. Especially people in my program, because that's the majority of the stuff we spend focused on developing those skills for. Or it could be a chemical solution like nicotine replacement therapy, but they still haven't addressed this big thing. So what we're doing when we're working client-led hypnosis, we basically because we're dealing with the majority of the problem, what happens is we just close that gap dramatically. And the client said, I guess I feel like I'm just done. Half the time we haven't done any formal hypnosis stuff at all, but they just feel like they're there, they're ready to go. So I want to set that framework on the front end, so when we're going through these analogies and metaphors, it makes a little bit more sense. Hopefully you can apply it a little bit more seamlessly into your current process and help people quit smoking faster with less stress, because as a practitioner that can drive you nuts when you don't know what you're doing and you're getting all this resistance and you don't know how to navigate it effectively. Okay, I think that's enough there. Let's dive into the paradox of the slingshot. So as I was saying before, you're pulling back, you're feeling that tension on the rope, and ultimately that's like their inner reality. And so when we're pulling back, almost think about it like we're slowing down and we're working on the inner reality with the client. We get a chance to deal with their fears, their doubts, limiting beliefs. So it may even feel like maybe we're going backward a little bit, because I'm getting them to acknowledge a bunch of things that they may have been scared of because they're important. Things that are scary tend to be very important to people unconsciously. So we're allowing ourselves the time and space we need to work through those mental barriers. And and once we do this, what's really cool though is it generates a ton of momentum, because now those things that were sticking points before aren't there the same way. So another metaphor I like to use is the idea of clearing the path before running. So you can imagine if you're running a marathon, you're about to go down a hill with a bunch of rocks and branches and things like that. As a metaphor of the mind, it might be a great idea to clear that rocky trail. Once we clear that mental clutter, running that sprint is a lot easier. There's not as much fear. We're dealing with all their shifting emotional realities. The things that used to scare them before start to look like things that are comfortable. I remember one of the anecdotes I tell a lot on here is I've had people say, I feel like smoking just has a hold of me. And then I allow that client all the time they need to articulate what they mean by that. I have them specify. And it's typically things like when I go to work, I light up a cigarette. But in their mind, they're trying to articulate that the cigarette's in control, but they're the ones lighting up the cigarette. The cigarette didn't go into its hand, grab a lighter, light itself up, and then make the person smoke it, right? That didn't happen. Until we're empowering that client, okay, to work in an inner-directed way, that is to say that they're empowered, our chances of success are gonna be diminished. It's just the way it is, right? Because life doesn't, it's not like a hypnosis session. You get that fantastic feeling afterward and you feel so at peace and you're so grounded. The world doesn't work that way. The world's gonna punch that client in the mouth, right? And so what we have to do is sort through these things so they're strong and powerful and robust and they're able to stand in the face of adversity in triumph over smoking and lead others to your practice so that you can help them as well, right? So the goal might seem very far away, but you're going to get there a lot quicker, even though we're slowing down to speed up, by clearing all the debris on that path, right? We're clearing the path before running. Another analogy I like is reprogramming the mental GPS, right? Most smokers feel like they're working hard, but they're going in circles. And if you think about on the front end of the piece of paper, we talked about how all the actions they're taking are external, or they're not focused on freeing up their inner reality. So they've told themselves quitting is miles away, someday I'll be ready. You hear a lot of this type of distancing language with them. That's because their inner GPS, if you will, is programmed to avoid discomfort, failure, uncertainty, fears. The most important things that we want to address and that we need to address to help that person be smoke-free long-term, those are the things that their mental GPS is set to avoid. This is very problematic, right? So what we want to do is focus on that mental reality. We want to reprogram that GPS to guide them towards the confidence, freedom, and certainty that they need. But we're not going to do that by avoiding those scary things, that friction in their inner reality. We want to use it because that's the path. Once they've sorted through that, challenges don't look the same way anymore. They already understand them differently. They've had an opportunity to learn about them. Okay, so that's how we get them on the right route, if you will. The next item I want to talk about is the sandbag balloon analogy. So think of a smoker like a hot air balloon, right? They've got this desire to quit, and that's the fire heating the balloon, but they can't rise, right? They can't raise the balloon up because they've got these sandbags holding them down, and that can be the mental, emotional resistance. So by addressing that inner reality with the client, again, it may seem like it's taking longer, but they're not going to get anywhere until those weights are gone. Right? You've got to get those off the balloon so they can lift up. Doesn't matter how strong the thing is. Think about how unnecessarily difficult this can make the work for them and you as the practitioner, because we're just not dealing with the majority of the problem per the client. They're even aware of this consciously. So they can go inward and sense, yeah, it feels like this is the majority of the problem needs to resolve it inside in the mind. So once we've removed that, it's just a huge release for them. That's why they're able to work so quickly and create results so fast with people. The next item here we have is mental quicksand. Smoking often feels like that for folks. It's like they're trying to get out of the quicksand, and the harder someone struggles to quit without addressing these sort of mental aspects, they just sink deeper, and their effort can really feel like it's in vain. So rushing towards the surface with solutions, you think about nicotine patches, things like that, sometimes that helps. Sometimes that person has the inner fortitude or the support around them to make that approach work. And we know this from data, right? We can do comparison studies where we can see one group just uses nicotine replacement therapy, and we can measure the success rates. A year later, they're not very exciting. And then if you give those same people with nicotine replacement therapy counseling, 60% of people are smoke-free a year later. It's because they're having that opportunity to work on the parts of the problem that are the most important for becoming smoke-free long-term. So addressing those root causes, I don't like that metaphor, but we gotta do what we gotta do. Beneath the mental resistance gets them out of that issue faster. And so a lot of times what feels like slowing down really is the key to helping them move forward and a lot quicker. So I want to talk about a few more ideas here, just the invisible progress effect. I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind. I have to point this out with my students because during demos, they'll feel like they're not getting anywhere, and then I can go back through the recording and say, look, this is where the shift started to happen. The person wasn't even aware of it yet. When we're working in this client-led way, the progress doesn't have to look obvious because we don't really care about a linear approach in that way. It's internal and it's subtle, just like our minds are. It's dealing in metaphor and things like that. Smokers might think, why aren't we doing something already? Or they might have this idea in their mind, but this removes the deep-seated resistance and all these different sort of intangible struggles with limiting beliefs. So that when we step into action, they realize that the hardest part's already done. And what's really cool about this approach is once we've done the 90% on the front end, it doesn't really matter what you do after that. Once we've dealt with all those emotional hang-ups and problems, the work is pretty much done there anyway. They're just going to process and integrate the changes afterward. So the way we approach any work hypnotically, it's just dynamite. It's just going to be way more powerful again because we've cleared the path as we talked about before. So I think this is really important. What that means is when you're working with a client, as you become more and more skilled with a client-led approach, progress doesn't have to look linear. People are making changes in such a way that when they revisit the problem, it just doesn't feel the same. They have more leverage over it. They have a new sense of empowerment. They're able to make different choices. Then there's the last item I wanted to talk about here is taking the invisible weight off the scale. Right? Smokers often feel like they're trying to quit, but there's a bit of a tug of war between the conscious and unconscious mind. Maybe they feel like the conscious mind is the thing that's pulling them towards the freedom. Yet they feel almost like this unconscious mental emotional resistance, and we're pulling them back, keeping them stuck. So simply by addressing that inner reality, it's like taking the mental weight off the resistance side. It doesn't feel like progress initially, but suddenly the balance shifts, and instead of this like seemingly hard-fought battle, the outcome just feels inevitable. And I hear this all the time from people. They're like, "Yeah, no, They can actually start to conceptualize the reality of being smoke-free." Whereas previously, I would ask them these questions. They'd be like, "I don't even know what you're talking about when you say you want to quit. What I say I want to quit smoking, I don't even know how to consider what that might look like in terms of like their day-to-day things they do, how they feel about themselves." This is a really powerful thing for people. I've had people say, "How do I quit smoking?" And as a non-smoker, you go, "What are you talking about? Put the cigarettes down, don't pick them up again, don't buy anymore." To them, it's almost like learning another language. They're completely off base with that notion of reality. They can hear you say that, but what they're really saying is when they ask, "How do I quit?" How do I arrange my internal reality in such a way that I can start to make those choices, that I can start to put the cigarettes down, no longer buy them. Really basic actions that any non-smoker could point to, they don't feel like they're able to. So we're providing an opportunity for that client to figure out how to take those actions very quickly. So I hope this is valuable, folks. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. I'm happy to explore those more in the future with y'all. Take care for now, everybody.